Hello my fellow oddities and welcome to a new video. Mortal Kombat 1 has quite a few controversial characters. Kuai Liang Scorpion, Sector, Cyrax, Bihan, but I don't think any of them are quite as, well, complicated as Tanya. Now, of course, there have been changes to her design that show more of her black African features, which has been debated a lot, some reasons being valid, like it taking away from her distinct and iconic look she had in previous games, others not so much and being a bit more flimsy, such as it being DEI or changing her race, which is just not true. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today. If you're interested in learning more about that, check out my design ranking video that I did for Tanya a couple months ago. Today, I was more interested to talk about the changes to her character, which is where it gets very wishy-washy. But before getting into her Mortal Kombat 1 incarnation, I think it'd be a good idea to cover the history of this character throughout the series, starting with her first appearance in MK4. One of the philosophies of Mortal Kombat 4 was to introduce many new characters as sort of a new guard that could take the series forward, that were similar to characters that already existed, but had their minor differences, such as Kai, Jarek, and Reiko. Most of these characters didn't really take off. But Tanya, who was meant to represent the female ninjas since Kitana and Mileena weren't in the base version of MK4, she did resonate better with fans. And in her story, she was seemingly innocent, bringing refugees to Edenia to save them from a harsher fate. However, one of those refugees was the fallen elder god Shinnok, and Tanya would betray her realm in order to serve him. She literally leads to the events of the game. Even in her ending, she is seen leading Liu Kang into a trap, using her seemingly innocent looks and personality to manipulate him. They eventually run into Quan Chi and Shinnok, who absolutely eviscerate Liu Kang. That part's not canon, but it shows that Tanya's character from the beginning was treacherous, manipulative, and selfish. And then Deception comes along and we find out that Tanya fled to Outworld after being marked a traitor, worked for the Deadly Alliance, and then for the Dragon King Onaga after they were killed. She just switches up her allegiances based on who will serve her the best, and she has this twisted sense of what is the right decision. She's calculated and makes choices based solely on her own gain. During this time, she was also known to have a very underdeveloped rivalry with Jade, which at this point was probably the only interesting thing about Jade's character. Yeah, Tanya was probably the better and more developed character at this point in time, which is just weird to think about now. And at this point, Tanya was well known to be an evil character, and her design reflects that. In MK4, her natural beauty and eyes were on display as a cover-up from her actual dark intentions. But now, her eyes are solid white. Dead inside. Then there's the rebooted timeline, where Tanya makes her first and only appearance in Mortal Kombat X. She works for Mileena in the rebellion against Kotal Khan, claiming to support Mileena's intention for a free Edenia.
She vowed to create a free Edenia, something you refused to do.
A united Outworld stands strong against its enemies.
It will never be united under your rule.
However, what she really wanted was to team up with her fellow Edenian Rain to overthrow Mileena when the time was right. This is why they wanted Mileena to become the new Khan of Outworld, because they saw her as weaker than Kotal and thus easier to manipulate and take down. Plus, Mileena had Shinnok's amulet, which would no doubt make them one of the most powerful forces in all the realms. However, their plans are cut early when they are defeated and Mileena is killed, and then Kotal takes the amulet. After that, it's unclear what happens with these two, though in Tanya's ending, she once again betrays someone, this time being Rain, whose whereabouts she shares with Kotal Khan, leading to his death. But MKX also added an interesting layer onto Tanya's character, which could have been inferred in the earlier games, especially with her MK4 ending, but never really was obvious until now, and that's her ability to seduce and use romance as a way to manipulate and get what she wants. And in the game, it's slightly hinted at in the story, but made very, very obvious in the intro dialogues that she is doing this to Mileena.
The Tarkatans are in position. We await your order.
It is given, dearest Tanya. Dearest Tanya.
Shall we proceed, Empress?
It will be my pleasure.
Mileena Khanum.
I love when you use my title.
Enough formalities.
You freed me from prison.
And will help regain your throne.
It would be a shame to lose you.
And this relationship really resonated with fans. People ran with it, especially the LGBT fans of the franchise who finally had some representation, not just in one character like with Kung Jin from this game, but in a real relationship.
You face a Shaolin.
Quite a handsome Shaolin.
Barking up the wrong tree, sister.
But the problem comes with the dynamic of this relationship. It is not a healthy one. Mileena has always been a character that seeks validation and acceptance. She's ashamed of her Tarkatan features and believes it to be ugly, which is why she tries to take attention away from it. And she is a character whose relationships and feelings of love are really important to her character since it represents her seeking someone who accepts her for who she is, such as Baraka. I mean, it's pretty obvious why he doesn't have a problem, but still.
Sleeping with Baraka's repulsive.
Who told you this?
But it does mean more coming from someone who isn't just biologically attracted to those features, which is why Mileena feels so accepted and loving towards Tanya. In MK11, when she gets control of the Hourglass, Mileena envisions her having a life with Tanya. But this is not a healthy relationship whatsoever. Tanya is taking advantage of these feelings of wanting to be accepted that Mileena has. Not to say it's a bad relationship story-wise, narratively it's actually the perfect tragedy for Mileena to find the perfect person who accepts her for who she is, but those aren't her actual intentions, and it kind of just reaffirms to her in her brain that she's not accepted by anyone. I actually kind of love it story-wise, but outside of the universe looking in as a real human person in the real world, it can be a very bad look for the only LGBT relationship within the franchise to be a toxic and manipulative one. Gives a lot of ammo to people you definitely don't want to have ammo. And that's why I say this gets complicated with Mortal Kombat 1, where Tanya is a completely different character. From birth, she is part of the Umgadi and is the royal family's personal guard. This makes her once again very close to Mileena. Now, Tanya isn't included in the story very much to be fair, but from what we can see, it appears she is not and has no reason to be the treacherous evil character we know from the original two timelines. And maybe NRS is just playing the long game and in the next few games she'll actually turn out to be all evil and stuff, but I highly doubt that. We can even see in the Chaos Reigns DLC story that the alternate timeline version of Tanya undoubtedly shares the same caring and good personality that it appears the main timeline version has. And it's hard for me to think that this change was made for any reason other than for the sake of her relationship with Mileena and making it the positive representation they want for the fans who have embraced this relationship more and more ever since MKX. And it's conflicting for me because I am someone who supports good representation for marginalized groups within media, especially Mortal Kombat since it's my favorite franchise. And of course that includes LGBTQ+ identifying people. So I don't blame NRS at all for making this decision. But I just can't help but feel like as a narrative and as a story, Tanya is so much less interesting as a character because of this. Now this could be down to her just not having a lot of screen time, but I do feel that Tanya just kind of blends into the background now with the rest of the generic good guy characters or even just the rest of the female ninjas. Like, does she really feel that different personality-wise from a Katana or a Jade? Not really. There's nothing that makes her distinct like how she was in the previous two timelines. And like I said earlier, that previous dynamic between Mileena and Tanya was so narratively satisfying, even if it could be seen as a bad look representation-wise, which then brings up the question, when should the narrative be prioritized over good representation? And I believe that the answer is always. These characters being complex and narratively satisfying is what makes them good representations, because then they're just caricatures, or being a minority is the only thing to them, and that's not representative of real people, and that's the whole point of representation, is to represent real people. And that's the sort of angle I'm looking at this in. If this was a straight relationship, no one would bat an eye because we hear about it all the time in real life and in other media, so many toxic straight relationships. But toxic LGBT relationships happen as well. Not more so, if anything I'd probably guess they happen less, but they do happen, and that is authentic. But what is also authentic is that these relationships often, most of the time, are amazing, supportive, and allows people to be who they really are. And I think that's where we find our solution here that will make it better representation than just making Tanya a generic lawful good character. I think the way to do this is to introduce a new character or use an existing one. I don't know who it would be. I suggested Jade in one of my older videos, but people in the comments brought up some good points against that, so maybe not her, but just someone who genuinely does care for Mileena and love her for who she is. So after Mileena and Tanya are in that toxic relationship and in the aftermath of Tanya's inevitable betrayal, when Mileena is absolutely devastated, have her learn to love and trust again through this new theoretical character. Maybe after Tanya betrays her, Mileena becomes cold, uncaring. This is Mortal Kombat, so maybe make her a little bit more sadistic and violent. And then maybe this new character shows her her more human, or I guess Edenian side once again. This is kind of a simple change, not really even a change, more like an addition on top of the original relationship that, in my opinion, as someone who is straight, so like, what does that matter? But I think it makes it better representation because it shows that these people are human. Okay, not literally human in the context of Mortal Kombat, but you get what I mean. They can be bad people. This is not a fantasy world where LGBT people are all perfect and are incapable of being evil or manipulative. One of the worst, most manipulative, most dishonest people I have ever met was pansexual. It was actually a very similar situation where my support and my care for them was taken advantage of. Not because they wanted to overthrow me or take everything I have, at least I don't think. But they are also very capable of being some of the most amazing, genuine, and empathetic people you will ever meet in your life. They are just people who should have rights, who should be able to live their life and feel safe the way that everyone should. And I think showing that is why this is good representation. But I can 100% understand NRS's decision and the opinions of anyone who thinks that they shouldn't even attempt to portray a gay relationship in a bad light, especially right now, because it can be risky. Mortal Kombat has a quite large LGBT fan base, and they have grasped onto this relationship specifically, and some feel very represented by it, and you don't want to alienate them, and you also don't want, generally the older side of the fan base, no offense, who might run away with it with a certain unintended narrative. But this is just what I think is the best solution to preserve the characterization while also giving good representation. And like I said, what the hell do I know? Maybe I'm being extremely problematic right now. I don't know. That's what the comments are for. You guys let me know. And while you're down there, make sure to check out the links in the description to my merch store, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, make sure to give this video a like to show your support, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to know when I next upload a new video. And with that being said, that's it for this video, my fellow oddities. I'll see you next time.